Alright, welcome to Rude Awakening. My name's John. My setup is a little less nice than normal. I don't have my lighting. It's all packed away. My normal microphone is packed away because we're getting ready to move. I'm pretty excited about that. So my next video should be from my new place. But I needed to do a video today because Joe Biden said something that I think is horrifying and ridiculous. And it just exemplifies everything that the left is pushing for right now. But first, go over to Rude Awakening Political Articles on Facebook. Make sure you follow us. We post brand new stuff every day. Sometimes it has to do with cats. I'm sorry about that. But yesterday I posted this. We have to give up our personal freedom to fight climate change and healthcare and gun violence and other Dem talking points. The point I'm trying to make with this is obviously the Democrats, every time that we've had a primary for the Democratic presidential candidates, every single talking point seems to be, how do we fix these problems? Well, we take away people's rights. That's all of them. How do we stop people from saying hateful things? Well, we take away their right to free speech. How do we stop them from committing gun violence? Well, we take away everybody's guns. You see how it is? That's exactly how it's been. And Joe Biden said something that is exactly that. He said the Second Amendment isn't absolute. Got this just a little bit off. There we go. He said the Second Amendment isn't absolute, which is a big fat lie. But he says here, the Second Amendment, no amendment in fact, is absolute. You can not stand up in this hall and yell fire. That's not freedom of speech because they know the consequence of yelling fire. There'll be a stampede and someone will get hurt. This one's false. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but you can yell fire in a crowded hall if there's a fire in a crowded hall. But I'll get more into that. The other one I want to get more into depth on is, can you go out and buy a flamethrower? Can you go out and buy an F-15? He continued. If you want to protect yourself against the federal government, you're going to need at least an F-15. Here's my question. What's the federal government planning on doing that I'm going to need an F-15 to fight them back? Huh, Joe? What's your plan here? Why would I need an F-15? Is there something I'm going to have to fight pretty soon here? Anyway, let's go back to the history of the Second Amendment. Now, you can look up the history of the Second Amendment. Steven Crowder does an excellent video about the history of the Second Amendment. I suggest you go over and watch that. But the Second Amendment was absolute. Okay? The reason I pull this article up, before the American Revolutionary War, did private citizens own cannons? Before and after, in fact, private citizens owned cannons. Cannons were arguably the most modern form of wartime machinery back in that day, along with certain kinds of automatic weapons, which they did have, certain kinds of weapons that held multiple bullets, which they did have. They had quite a bit of firearm technology, and private citizens were absolutely allowed to own those things. There's actually a bill in one of the states or in one of the cities. It was a noise ordinance bill that said you cannot fire your cannon within city limits because it's too noisy, unless there is a threat. Why would that exist if private citizens didn't have cannons? There are tons of other examples of private citizens owning the same kind of weapons that the federal government owned. So why wouldn't we be allowed to own it now? Well, Joe Biden didn't do his research, because this is a website where you can go and you can buy fighter jets. Look at that. Now, if you've got, 75,000 to 8 million, I think was the highest one I saw. If you've got that much money lying around, yeah, you can absolutely go buy yourself a fighter jet. If you feel like owning a fighter jet, go get you a fighter jet, because apparently Joe Biden's planning something where you're going to need a fighter jet to defend yourself against the federal government. But his other example in that same sentence was a flamethrower. Can you, as a private citizen, own a flamethrower? This is a website where you can buy a flamethrower! I love America. So, can you, as a private citizen, buy both a flamethrower and a fighter jet? Hells yes you can! Because this is America. Oh my gosh. We're gonna hurry and look at the price on one of these. Napalm compatible. $2,975. It's on sale, actually, from $3,199. How great is that? Let's talk about this really quick. We're going to go back to that first screen, because I like the fire blowing in the background. The amendments of the Constitution were not created to tell people what they are and are not allowed to do. Okay? The rights listed in the Constitution of the United States are not telling us as private citizens what we are allowed to do. It is telling the government what they are not allowed to touch. Okay? The First Amendment, what it says is that the government is not allowed to tell you what you can and cannot say or what you can and cannot think. The only time they are allowed to is if you are causing harm to somebody else. Okay? The only time is if you're causing harm to somebody else. If you go into a crowded theater that's not on fire and you yell fire and somebody gets hurt, that's your fault. Okay? That's not free speech. He was right there. But if I go into a crowded theater and there's a fire, and I yell fire, and someone gets hurt, that's free speech. I wasn't lying. If I want to go out on the street and say whatever I want, no matter how offensive it is, as long as I am not calling for violence or trying to get someone hurt, my right is protected and the government cannot touch that. That's what the First Amendment says. The Second Amendment says that I, as a private citizen, have the right to protect my family and my assets. Okay? And that the government cannot touch that unless I am out there actively hurting someone. If I buy a flamethrower right now and I go out and I go to a Walmart and start throwing flames at people, then yeah, the government can act. The government can come in and they can shoot me. A private citizen in Walmart can come over with their concealed carry and shoot me. That's their right. The government cannot arrest the private citizen who shoots me because it is their right to protect themselves. They are not there doing anything wrong. I was the one there doing something wrong. The only time the government can act is when someone is acting to take away someone else's rights. Other than that, the government cannot act. Joe Biden does not have the authority or the right to say that the Second Amendment is not absolute, because he is part of the government. And most gun owners are law-abiding. You can look up all the statistics. I've gone over them before. Most gun owners are not out there shooting people. In fact, most gun owners will never shoot a human being in their life. But there are those who are out there who are evil, who are terrible, who will do bad things, and they will hurt people. That's when the government has the authority to act. So, in summary, can you own a flamethrower? Can you own a fighter jet? Absolutely you can. Can you go into a theater and yell fire? If there's a fire, you can. Can the government come in and tell you that your rights are not absolute? No. They are God-given rights. Now, if you don't believe in God, then they're rights given to you by the grace of being human. The government cannot take those away unless you allow them to, and that's all that the Democrats are trying to do right now, is they are trying to get you to give up your rights willingly, because that is the only way that they can come and take that away. So, make sure you go over to Facebook, follow us. I'll be posting more videos later after we get this move over with, and thank you for watching. Make sure you share this video, let everybody know that their rights are important, and more importantly, let them know that they can go out and buy a flamethrower.